You won't believe how a cinematic director could solve a murder mystery that has gone unsolved for 40 years. How are you guys? Look, I've always believed in my whole life that the end of lying is always awful. Any kinds of lies, even white lies, like lying with good intentions. Why lying? There is no need for it. And what confirms it to me today is this man I'm going to tell you about. Because he has done nothing in his life except for lying. And I want to tell you that today's video will be full of events and details. So I tell you to get yourself a snack or a drink, make sure you're comfortable and focus on all the details. But before I start the story, I have two small requests for you. I hope you've done it already the moment you opened the video. The requests as usual are to subscribe and hit the like button. And let's start our story. On the 31st of January 1982, there was a girl named Kathleen McCormack who used to study in medical school in Albert Einstein University. One day after she finished her university day, she gathered with her friends and hung out. After this nice day, she had to go home to her husband. Her husband's name is Robert Durst. It was known that he was the son of Simon Durst. This man and his family were one of the richest and most famous families in the real estate industry in New York. But Robert was a little different. He even left work with his family and opened a health food store, which is too far from the family work. Anyway, the house of Kathleen and her husband was in a place in New York called South Salem. She went back home that day, but she got into a big fight with her husband, to the extent that she decided to go back to her house in Manhattan. Robert didn't object to her decision and even said he'd drive her to the train station. And he did indeed, and saw her until she got onto the train. Then he went to his friends to spend some time with them to unwind. After he finished hanging out and was going back home, he saw a phone booth, so he decided to call and check on his wife. And she told him that she arrived safely and everything was fine on her side. But strangely, after that call, Kathleen disappeared. She didn't answer calls on her house phone. Robert kept waiting for a long time to receive a call from his wife, who never called him again. Robert worried so much about his wife that he called the police and told them what happened. The investigations into Kathleen's disappearance mystery began.
Mrs. Durst was a fourth-year medical student here at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine, and she was to have a clinic class that morning, but she called up saying she wasn't feeling well.
Good evening. She talked on the telephone with her husband and with a supervisor at a medical center. Then she vanished. That was more than a week ago, and no one has seen Kathleen Durst since.
So when the investigations first started, they decided to begin by asking the guard of her apartment. The guard said that he only saw her twice, and they also found out that before Kathleen disappeared, she used to go treat her facial injuries in a hospital named Brunette, which means that Robert used to hit her a lot. And they also discovered that at that time, Kathleen wanted a divorce and get about $250,000 from him. But he didn't agree and refused the divorce idea to begin with. But strangely, instead of becoming nicer and good to her, he only became more violent. And to punish her, he removed her name from the bank and stopped financially supporting her university. So he wanted to prevent his wife from education. And I want you to know that education for Kathleen was very important. And because of the plenty shreds of evidence, linked to Robert, the police decided to search around his house. And they searched his garbage without his permission. They found that he threw many things that seemed fishy. He threw her university books, her makeup, and her clothes as if he knew she wasn't coming back. And although all shreds of evidence assured that he was related to her disappearance, they couldn't get their hands on a conclusive evidence that allowed them to arrest him, and especially since he was also upset about what happened to his wife. Robert always seemed sad, wanting to know the truth of what was going on with her. And just like this case lasted for years without a solution. On the 23rd of December 2000, the police got a letter from an unidentified person. Written on it, Beverly Hills Police. But if you notice, you will see that Beverly Hills is written incorrectly. But the police didn't focus on that, because their attention was rather captured by the word written inside the letter. The word was cadaver, and this is a word that means corpse. In the meantime, there was a woman who called the police to inform them that her neighbor has disappeared a few days ago. The missing neighbor also has a lot of letters at her door, and no one came out of the house to take them. Besides, she doesn't answer her phone. Her house back door is open and her dog is wandering outside. So the police had to move as soon as they got the letter and the car. Indeed, when they went to her house, they found the corpse of a woman shot from the back of her head. The police noticed that no one broke into the house and committed the crime. On the contrary, they were sure that the criminal was someone she knew, and she let them in herself. During the investigation, they found out that this woman was Susan Berman. They also discovered that she was the daughter of a well-known mobster called Davy Berman. After discovering her background, they decided that it was the cause of her death.
She wrote about mobsters, and she was the daughter of one. So when author Susan Berman was found with a single gunshot wound to the head at her Benedict Canyon home on Christmas Eve, all of the obvious questions came up. Mostly, was it a mob-style hit?
But they also got a piece of strange information, which was that the closest person to her, and is considered to be her best friend, was someone named Robert Durst. The police then felt that there definitely was something more about the whole lot of this, because two crimes, one of murder and the other of disappearance, and the same person was present in both of them. When they searched more about who this woman was, it turned out that she was the same person who defended Robert against the accusations of killing his wife. Not only defending, but also gave proof that he was with her when his wife went missing. So the investigation with him started again. He said that he has absolutely no relation and he doesn't even know that Susan died. And this is strange. As I said previously, she was considered one of the closest people to him. How can you be so close to someone and not know that they died or something happened to them? When they let him know about the letter they got, Robert said that the killer must have sent it. Once again, after all the investigation, they couldn't get any evidence that he was the one to go to her house to begin with. So this case remained open as well, because for the second time, they didn't achieve anything. The police put Robert in mind and decided to keep an eye on him. However, Robert disappeared when his wife's case was reopened. In October 2001, the police found a black plastic bag in a place called Galveston Bay in Texas. When they opened these bags, they found that they contained the remains of a corpse. Anyways, after the terrifying discovery by the police, they managed to get the fingerprint of the corpse they found in the water. Later, they found out that the corpse belonged to a guy called Morris Black. Then they discovered that this guy Morris used to live in an apartment in a building that belonged to Claus Gilman. When they found out who Morris was and where he lived, they went to his apartment and they found something very strange. They found the line of blood coming from his apartment to apartment number 2, where this woman 30 Sonner lived. And of course, as soon as they saw the line of blood, they brought permission for inspection to search inside Morris' apartment. As soon as they got into the house and on the side of the kitchen, they found scratches on the floor. The detective moved a part of the floor surface to see what's underneath, and there were drops of blood. It belonged to Morris Black, which means that that was where he was killed and chopped. When the police asked about the apartment owner, he said that she was a deaf woman who didn't stay there for most of the time because she traveled a lot. But he always saw a man go into her house. So he asked her about him one day, and she said that he was her husband's brother. After this discovery, the police turned the building upside down and kept looking after this matter for a long time until they found a strange thing in the rubbish container behind the building. They found a receipt of someone receiving glasses. You'll be wondering what's wrong with that. What's so wrong with someone receiving glasses? I would like to inform you that the name on the receipt was Robert Durst. The detective went immediately to the eyeglass shop to which the receipt belongs and requested to be informed when that man comes to get his glasses. Indeed, after a couple of days, the workers in the eyeglass called the detective, and then the police arrested Robert for the 3rd time. And before you think that's it, this one is for sure the last, I would like to tell you that the crime happened in Texas, which means that they know nothing about Robert Durst or his crimes. Anyways, while they investigate him, Robert once again said that he knows nothing about the matter. The police were insistent and trying to find anything that proves he had a relation with Morris Black. So, Robert paid a bail of $250,000 to get out of jail until the court day, until the day came when he was in the supermarket and was caught stealing a chicken sandwich. But what's strange is that he had $500 in his pocket. So why do you steal if you have money? The police arrived and went to search his car, and they found 2 guns, $37, drugs, and the most important thing they found was Morris Black's driver license. It was then they got sure that he had a hand in his death.
New York real estate heir Robert Durst will be turned over to Texas authorities this week. He faces charges in the dismemberment of the 71-year-old neighbor.
During the investigation, Robert felt that he was cornered and decided to tell everything that actually happened. What happened is that Morris realized something strange about Northie, the woman who lived in the apartment number 2, which is that she actually is a man. He asked her who was she. The woman said that her real name was Robert Durst. The natural question that comes next is why is he distinguishes himself as a woman? Robert said that he wanted to hide his identity and to hide from everyone. After that answer, a strong friendship was created between the two, Robert and Morris, because Morris understood Robert well. and told him that he went through the same situation and that it's normal that he wants to hide and escape from his personality. But this friendship ended when one day Robert came back to his house and found Morris waiting for him inside while watching TV. Robert got confused. Why would Morris go inside his house without his permission, and was worried because of his expressions and feared that he might have had the gun he had in his house. And his fear turned to be true when Morris stood from where he was sitting and held the gun up to Robert's face. Then of course they got into a very violent fight. And for a moment in this fight, the gun was shot mistakenly and Morris died. And after lots of investigations, the court decided that he wasn't the culprit because the crime was classified as a self-defense crime. You see, Robert was attacked in his house by Morris.
For the verdict of the jury is such: with the jury find the defendant, Robert Durst, not guilty.
Robert also stated that he cut the corpse because no one was going to believe him if he told the truth, and as they couldn't find the head of the corpse, which was the place Morris was shot, according to Robert, they can't prove the validity of his statement. And even if he killed Morris out of self-defense, why did he cut the body in such horrific sight? Even the cutting method was perfect to the extent that they suspected he had done it before. They asked him if he had ever done such a thing before, but he said that it was the first time he'd cut a corpse. It seemed to me as if he answered this question like if someone asked him, "Have you ever ate sushi before?" He said he could cut the body so perfectly because he heard from a doctor before that the corpse dissection is something like cutting a chicken. After all, he said in their interrogation, they sought help from a psychiatrist instantly, and he kept examining him for 70 hours. And it turned out that he had a disease called Asperger. This disease can be considered close to autism because the patient suffers from a difficulty of adapting socially and loves isolation. But one of its symptoms is that the patient repeats his behavior even if it was wrong. Not only this, but he also was sentenced to 5 years in jail in 2003. And by the way, this sentence wasn't because he murdered Morris Black, but because he didn't show up for court dates and because he didn't confess sooner that he killed Morris Black. Also, he got out from prison only after 3 years spent in jail. And then Robert Durst went back to living with us again, as if he only cut a chicken, not a human being, as he said.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
In 2011, a movie was released by the name All Good Things. This movie was inspired by the disappearance case of Robert Durst's wife. This movie appealed to Robert Durst a lot, so he called the filmmaker and told him, "It's time that people hear the story through me. All of these years, people thought that I killed my wife, but in reality, I have nothing to do with it. I must prove my innocence." Of course, the filmmaker named Andrew Jaretsky liked the idea a lot, and indeed, they sat with each other until the filmmaker Andrew released another movie called The Jinx. But Robert didn't expect that this movie was the one that will change his entire life. During the period Robert sat with Andrew, Robert used to tell the story from his side, what happened to him and the suffering he went through when he was accused of his wife's death. And he kept saying that he was innocent from all these accusations. He also showed him everything related to the case. But there was something the stepson of Susan got to know, which is a letter sent to her from Robert Durst, when they were best friends a long time ago. But if you paid close attention to the address, you will find out that it has the same mistakes in the word Beverly Hills, which was sent to the police previously. And also, far from the fact that it was the same mistake, the handwriting was identical. After discovering this, the filmmaker decided to confront Robert with that in front of the camera, without even telling the police what he discovered so he could finish his movie. When Robert was faced with those unexpected shreds of evidences, he was confused. He felt that the interview that was supposed to improve his reputation is probably going to destroy his entire life. He told the producer that he indeed wrote the letter, but he has never sent anything to the police. After the interview ended and the lights were turned off, Robert went to the bathroom, but he didn't know that the mic was still on and that the work team was hearing him when he said,
Kill them all, of course.
how good is the evidence that comes from God just like that? What evidence? It's a confession. Surely, after the interview, he was found guilty of Susan's murder and was arrested in 2019. Then he confessed so much things no one could imagine. He confessed that he didn't call his wife to make sure she was alright, as he said during the investigation back then. And he called the university, not her. Even his friends who he hung out with, that didn't even happen. He also had never been to Kathleen's apartment in Manhattan. He also confessed about when Susan called him to tell him that the police wanted to investigate with her again because his wife's case was reopened. He went to her but found her dead. But in order to get no one to suspect him, he just stayed away and sent the weird letter to the police. But of course, while he was saying the truth, he was lying at the same time, because Robert is the one who actually killed her himself when Susan told him she was going to tell the truth. With all this happening, Kathleen's case was reopened again, but this time it wasn't a disappearance case, it was a murder case. Lots of people thought that he killed her the same way he killed Morris and dissected her corpse too. Finally, in the 17th of September 2021, he was sentenced to first-degree murder in Susan's case. And with this, Robert will spend the rest of his life in jail without the possibility to get conditional discharge. 2 months later, he was officially accused of killing his wife, but unfortunately, this accusation was incomplete because he passed away in 2022. Honestly, guys, when I heard about this case, I really wanted and preferred for him to stay alive so that he gets punished at least a little of what he has done, because finally the charges were proven against him. Like, that's impossibly unfair. Like, to die the moment it's time to face the consequences of his wrongdoings. I think that he did a clean job getting away with all he has done for so long without getting caught. But I know that no matter how clever and smart you are, one day the cover will be taken off and the truth will reveal. I would like to know what punishment you think suits him better if he was still alive. You can leave your opinions in the comments down below, and I'll see you in a new video with a new story. Bye.